Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Vincula Estes. The second task, exposing the crude shadow. In this part of the tale, the bad rotten stepfamily marches into Vasalisa's world and begins to make her life miserable. The tasks of this time are learning even more mindfully to let go of the overly positive mother, finding that being good, being sweet, being nice will not cause life to sing. Vasalisa becomes a slave, but it does not help. Experiencing directly one's own shadow nature, particularly the illusionary, jealous, exploitative aspects of life, of self, the stepmother and stepsisters, acknowledging this unequivocally, making the best relationship one can with the worst parts of oneself, letting the pressure build between who one is taught to be and who one really is, ultimately working toward letting the old self die and the new intuitive self be born. The stepmother and the stepsisters represent the undeveloped but provocatively cruel elements of the psyche. They are shadow elements, meaning aspects of oneself which are considered by the ego to be undesirable or not useful, and they are therefore relegated to the dark. No, on one hand, shadow material can be quite positive, for often a woman's gifts are pushed into the dark, hidden there and waiting to be discovered. On the other hand, negative shadow material, that which easily kills off or detains all new life, can also be turned to one's use, as we shall see when it erupts and we finally identify these aspects and sources. We are made all the stronger and wiser. In this stage of initiation, a woman is harassed by the pretty demands of her psyche, which exhort her to comply with whatever anyone wishes. Compliance causes a shocking realization that must be registered by all women. That is, to be ourselves causes us to be exiled by many others, and yet to comply with what others want us to be exiled from ourselves. It is tormenting tension, and it must be borne, but the choice is clear. Vasalisa is disenfranchised, for she inherits and is inherited by a family that cannot understand or appreciate her. As far as they are concerned, she is unnecessary. They hate and revile her. They treat her as the stranger, the unworthy one. In fairy tales, the role of the stranger or the outcast is usually played by the one who is most deeply connected to the knowing nature. The stepmother, the stepsisters can be understood as creatures set out in a woman's psyche by the culture to which a woman belongs. The stepfamily in the psyche is different from the soul family, for it is the superego, that aspect of the psyche which is structured according to each particular society's expectation, healthy or not, for women. This cultural, that is, superego overlays and injections, and are not experienced by women emanating from the soul self psyche, but are felt as if they come from out there, from some other source which is not innate. The cultural superego overlays can be very positive, or they can be very detrimental. Vasalisa's stepfamily is an intrapsychic ganglia which pinches off the nerve to the life's vitality. They entered as a chorus of unredeemed hags who taunt, "You can't do it, you are not good enough, you're not bold enough, you're stupid, insipid, vacant, you don't have time, you're only good for simple things, you're only allowed to do this much and no more. Give up while you're ahead." As Vasalisa is not yet fully conscious of her powers, she allows this evil cream in her lifeline. In order for her to regain her life, something different, something life-giving must occur. The life is true for us. We can see in the story that Vasalisa's intuition into what it is happening around her is quite flimsy, and that the father of the psyche doesn't notice the hostile environment either. He's also too good and has no intuitive development himself. It is interesting to know that daughters who have naive fathers often take far longer to awaken. We too have pinched off when the step-family within us and our surrounding us tell us we are not much to begin with and insist we focus on our shortcomings rather than perceiving the cruelty whirling around us, be it emanating from within our psyches or from without in the culture. However, to see into or through something requires intuition and also strength to stand up what one sees. Like Vasalisa, we try to be nice when we ought to be knowing. We may have been taught to set aside acute insight in order to get along. However, the regard for simply being nice in oppressive circumstances is to be mistreated all the more, although a woman feels that if she is herself she will alienate others. It is just this psychic extension that is needed in order to make soul and to create change. So the stepmother and the stepsister scheme to send Vasalisa away. They secretly plot. Go into the forest, Vasalisa, and go to Baba Yaga, and if you survive, haha, which you won't, then we might accept you. This is a very critical idea because many women are stuck halfway through this initiation process, sort of hanging half in, half out over the hoop, although there is a natural predator in the psyche, one who says, die and bah, and why don't you give up? On a rather automatic basis, the culture in which a woman lives and the family in which she was raised can painfully exacerbate the natural but moderate naysaying aspect in the psyche. For instance, women who are raised in families that are not accepting for their gifts often set off on tremendous big quest over and over, and they do not know why. They feel they must have 3 PhDs, or that they have to hang upside down from a Mount Everest, or that they must excel all manner of dangerous, time-consuming and money-eating endeavors to try to prove to their families that they have worth. Now will you accept me? No? Okay. Watch this. The stepfamily ganglia, of course, belongs to us, whichever means we perceive it, and it is our work to deal with it and in an empowered manner. However, we can see that for the deep work to continue trying to prove one's worth to the chorus of jealous hags is pointless and, as we shall see, in fact impedes the initiation. Vasalisa does the everyday chores without complaint. To submit without complaint is heroic seeming, but in fact causes more and more pressure and conflict between the two oppositional natures, one too good and the other too demanding. Like the conflict between being over-adaptive and being oneself, this pressure builds to a good end. A woman who is torn between these two in a good way, but she must take the next steps. In the story, the stepwomen so quiz the bargaining psyche that through their machinations the fire goes out. At this point, woman begins to lose her psychic bearings. She may feel cold, alone, and willing to do anything to bring back the light again. This is just the jolt to the nice woman needs to order to continue her induction into her own power. One might say that Vasalisa has to meet the great well hag because she needs a good scare. We have to leave the chorus of detractors and plunge into the woods. There is no way to both stay and go. Vasalisa, like us, needs some guiding light that will differentiate for her what is good for her and what is not. She cannot develop by standing around being everyone's bootjack. Women who try to make their deeper feelings invisible are deeding themselves. The fire goes out. It is a painful form of suspended animation. Conversely, and perhaps somewhat perversely, when the fire is put out, it helps to snap Vasalisa out of her submission. It causes her to die to an old way of life and to step with shivers into a new life, one which is based to an older, wiser kind of inner knowing.